Hey everybody, my name's Alex. Welcome back to Gray Area, and we're here today with the man, the myth, the legend, Odd Mob. How's it going, buddy? How you doing?
Hey Alex, I'm very good. How are you?
I'm fucking fantastic. After some technical difficulties on both sides, I'm glad that we are on and we're moving.
That's right. It wouldn't be the same if I was just a black screen.
No, it wouldn't. I like seeing people's faces.
Yeah.
And it kind of brings me back to the pandemic days when this is the only way anybody could communicate.
Oh,
Sure. Well, I always like to start things off by taking a step back in an artist's career and talking about what formed a musical DNA. And the best way to do that is to find out what were your parents listening to and how did they kind of influence your music or influence you early on in life.
um, I wouldn't say my parents were like gigantic music people. My dad listened to like a little bit of Kansas. My mum played the piano, which was kind of cool, but she didn't really play too much in my teenage years. So I don't know. I don't think I really got a whole lot of influence from them. Like even all the older stuff I like is like not really on the same wavelength to what they liked. Like I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't remember listening to any of that when I was growing up. So go figure.
So where did your your proclivity for music come from then?
So my first ever job,
Yeah.
like, cause I was like super lazy in high school. Um, my mum ran a talent competition at the school, and she was like, "Harry, you should be the MC." And I was like, "Okay, I guess like I was the type of child to like never say no to my mum for fear of getting smacked." So I was like, "All right, I'll do it." Um, and yeah, basically like young. I think I might have been like 15 or something at the time. Like was the adjudicator and like judge, or not judge, like the host of this talent competition. And one of the judges was a guy who owned a mobile DJ business, and he was like, "Hey, young sport, you can talk on a microphone. Do you want to join my mobile DJ service and go and play at weddings and stuff like that?" So he hooked me up with two DVD players and a big desk and just like a bunch of CDs and just like sent me in the deep end. And I one of the first things I ever played was like a 16th birthday party or something, and like everyone was making requests. I'm like, I only have these CDs and it's like full of old people music, um, which was awesome. And then from there I was like, fuck it, all right, I need to get like a laptop so I can play people's requests and blah blah blah. So before you knew it, I had like a controller and a controller and a laptop, and I was like the hottest thing on the south side of Brisbane amongst the 16-year-olds.
This is gotta be one of the most unique ways somebody's gotten into DJing that I've heard.
Yeah, and then from there, this like really weird, like probably like mid 30s guy recruited myself and a bunch of other people to promote these underage DJ events, and I was like, this is my chance, this is my shot. So we didn't realize at the time that basically he was using us to like drive around and drop off hard copy tickets and like essentially promote this show for free, like all this free labor. Um, and yeah, so played like these underage raves and then met the person I used to DJ with in Odd Mob back in the day through that.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. You start DJing, and then I'm like, oh, I need to make a mashup. Like I should try to make a mashup, and then I make a mashup. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should try and make a song. So I try to make a song, and it sounds terrible. And then like the second or third song I made like got signed, who's by my now manager.
Well,
So that was, yeah, it just kind of happened.
well, let's talk about that because it sounds like you're saying a bunch of stuff just happened to you, but you had to have had some hand in all that. You said the third or fourth song that you made got signed.
I think it
Can
might
you
have
talk
actually been
about?
my second ever original. Yeah, I basically just copied GTA or something. I've told them this as well. I was like, this is back during the big room days. So
Yeah.
like you could literally just slap a gigantic kick with anything on the top, and it would sound alright. So if you look up Odd Mob the Tribe,
Yeah.
pretty sure it's still on YouTube. Bit of a banger. Yeah, got signed like that, and I don't even know. We had like some weird guy who ran events on the sunny coast, which is like 2 hours north of where I live.
Yeah.
Who was managing us for a bit, and somehow he sent the track that I made to this small label here called Central Station, and it got signed. I was like,
A
"What's
small
going
label.
on?"
Let's be clear here. Central Station is not technically a small label. I mean, they do pretty well.
No, they're actually quite a big label, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, I say that because when you like go and visit the office, it's like a handful of people. Like in your mind, you picture a label. You're like, there must be like 50 people. Like people, there's like assistants with documents and stuff walking around, like signing all the music and doing all this. Guys, there's usually just a really small team of people just vibing.
Just a bunch of guys in the back office somewhere.
Yeah, like literally, Central Station is in the same like little office as Sweated Out and like a few other like little imprints, and it's literally just in like the back corner room of this huge office building where a bunch of other like touring and stuff happens. And I think last time I went there was maybe like 6 people in the office. I'm like, wow, like this is like a good portion of Australian dance music all just in this tiny little office room.
That's wild to think that so much of like of the scene in Australia is operating on such a tiny imprint.
Yeah.
Can you talk about? I know Odd Mob used to be 2 people. How did you meet your old partner, and then how did that progress into you eventually just branching out on your own?
So basically, Robbie, the other guy who was in Odd Mob, we were both playing those underage raves. I would play on my APC 40 and a tractor. Why was I DJing on an APC 40?
That sounds needlessly complicated, but sure,
It's
why not?
stupid. Yeah, so I was DJing on APC 40. Robbie had a controller, but he also had CDJs. Like, so he was like, because he was basically like the hot kid on the north side of Brisbane, but he was making bank. So he like bought some CDJs, and basically like we both started to realize that we wanted to like become DJs, like bigger DJs. So we wanted to enter a competition to play at a nightclub, and basically this competition we both tried to enter last minute, and the guy's like, I've only got 1 spot, so you can enter as a duo, but I'm literally making the poster right now, so you need to like have a duo name. So we were like, oh, like start panicking. We were like using random name generators, like so we came up with like Odd Squad, and then we googled that, and it was like some I don't even I don't know. Anyway, Odd Squad was taken, so we're like, okay, Odd Mob, and nothing really popped up, so that was that.
Everything in your career is like this random thing that just happens to happen, and it all just happens to work out. Like, how do you explain always being in the right place at the right time?
I mean, pretty much. I mean, that's how I make music as well. Like, I just do random stuff, and then eventually something cool happens. I'm like, nice. Like, that's sick. Like, thank you, dice lords up in the sky who were just rolling good numbers for me. But yeah, we were a duo for a while. We had like a viral track in Australia called "Is It a Banger," which was just based off Aziz Ansari in Parks and Recreation. And then, like, before you knew it, we were touring with, like, 2 tracks. Just playing at, like, pubs and stuff like that around the country. Like, just... But it was a good time. And, yeah, I just, like, got better and better at production. And Robbie was, like, always more focused on, like, the DJ side.
Yeah.
And then eventually it was like, well, now our whole project is revolved around the productions. So, like... and I mean, like, every duo probably goes through this problem. Like, it's really expensive to be in a duo. Like,
flying 2 people is much more expensive than flying 1 person now.
Yeah, like double flights and like, you know, splitting the money. Like even these days, I think like with my current income, far out, it'd be rough trying to tour with two people. Like even playing like pretty decent shows, like it'd be. Anyway, so I was like, I'd already done a degree at this point, and Robbie hadn't. I was like genuinely anxious about the future. I was like, well, God, what happens? Like, what happens in like 2 or 3 years' time when I'm like mid-20s and doing super well for himself, has a lovely life. So anyway, that's a bit of the backstory.
Well,
He's
I love that it ended on good terms, and both of you guys have like gone on to do the things that you like to do. And you got to take the name that you found you didn't find on the internet, and like build a career off that.
That's right. I mean, it's the worst possible name in hindsight for one guy. Like, it just makes no sense. But
Because you're not a mob. It's just you.
yeah, that's right. It's easy, but at the end of the day, it's relatively easy to say and easy to spell. Although for some reason, people like promoters and stuff will randomly put an extra B on the end, and I feel like that's like a mob. Does Mob Deep have an extra B?
Mob
Yeah.
Deep have an
Dude,
extra-
all right,
I-
Mob Deep literally screwed me over so hard. Like everyone's just throwing extra B's around like it's free real estate.
I've been looking at your name for the longest time. I saw your name pop up in promos. I want to say, and I may be wrong, like around 2017. Was
Something
maybe
like that.
and even though I've for like a really really long time.
Yeah. There you go.
See, this is the good stuff. Matching a face to a name, and I want to.
That's right.
I want to talk about like. So I wanted to. The first time I recognized your music, it was like I want to say it was right around the time when like bass house and tech house were kind of starting to like meld into the same thing, and you had this. And I say this with the most love. You had this wonderfully weird sound that I could not match up with anybody else in the scene. And where did that come from? Have you always just kind of thrown a bunch of shit in the blender and it just works out? Like it's so singular what you do, and I want to find out like how did that happen?
I think the reason my stuff usually sounds a bit different is because like I didn't really watch that many sound design over that is just like blatantly terrible. And I don't know. It's a strange question. Like there was a period where I just like somebody told me that you can FM samples, like you can run FM in samples in Ableton.
Yeah.
And then so for ages I was just getting random samples and just FMing them, and it would sound just really, really weird. So, that kind of helped a lot. But throughout the years, I've done like heaps of different genres. So, I mean, I guess a lot of people have, but like in the early days, I was making heaps of trap, big room, future house, future bass, like even like drum and bass, like but early on in the days. So maybe that's helped a bit with like defining my own sound, but I think more than anything I'm like hyper aware of the meta, so I've always like been a fan of like crate digging and like just really scoping out like what absolutely everybody else is doing. So I'm constantly like, all right, that sounds generic. Like everything I do, I'm like, that sounds generic. Like I can't do that. So maybe that's why. But I think a lot of it is seriously just like experimenting and just dumb luck with doing strange things, and it just sounds sick.
Fucking well said. Do you think that like that act of actively like looking at what everybody else is doing and kind of swerving left of that is like really important? Is a really important facet to like what you do?
I mean, it's kind of like a moral thing for me. Like, I think we are so spoiled these days. A lot of us producers, we're so spoiled because we have access to so much. Like the concept of splice is like insane to me. That we have just like millions of samples and all this and all that. and then somehow like you'll just pop into your promos and just hear so much stuff that just sounds so derivative, and like it's scary sometimes. I'm like, I wanna try to give back in some way, and I think the only way that I know how is to just do some really weird stuff, even if it sounds kind of bad, or like, yeah, it's a real moral point for me to try and do something different every time, just because like I feel like we have to, like, our production ancestors, so to speak, would be like, you're so fucking lucky. Like, I can't imagine like what producers back in the early days who were experimenting would think if they could like travel forward in time and just see this like plethora of stuff, and then also see the same people who are like making tutorial house. Like,
Well, it's bizarre because we're spoiled by choice, right? And you would think being spoiled by choice would make things infinitely more creative. And
yeah, I
what
mean,
it's
don't get
done
me.
just made things like fall further into these really straight lanes. It's bizarre that even spoiled by choice, we don't choose to be like, oh, yeah, I have 10 million sounds on Splice. Let's see how I can mangle all of these sounds into something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, there's a plethora of amazing music out there. Like, just so much, and I think the main challenge right now is finding stuff that is unique and also playable. Because, like, I'll agree. Like, a lot of the more cookie cutter stuff, it does bang and it does like fit into a set like relatively easy. So I feel like one of my friends who works in rap production, like makes rap beats, told me that like, because we were talking about drill like ages ago, and we're like, this is so sick, like blah blah blah, and I was like, oh, when do you think like this is gonna like start? When do you think we're gonna start hearing like Drake or like these bigger rappers on a drill beat? And he's like, honestly, man, like it moves in like smaller increments than you'd think.
Yeah.
Like, maybe the sound has existed for so long, but you got to like take the steps, or it takes like a really prolific person to just be like, boom, like this is the new meta.
Yeah.
And I feel like the same thing is kind of true for dance music. Like you can't fully just change things all in one go, but you can kind of find something that's in the middle ground each time. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on more now, is like finding something that's unique but also could fit into a set, because there's no point making something crazy if like none of the other DJs are going to play it, because then all I'm going to do is reach my own audience, which, you know, sadly I don't have 1 million followers on Instagram just yet, but yeah, try to push it. Like, I'm trying to push it just like a little bit at a time, so, you know, maybe someone will just throw it in and be like, oh, that's like sounds like, to be honest, but hey, there's probably something in there.
It's probably, if you put a big room drum under it, it would probably work.
It actually would. I'm trying to picture what that would sound like. It would go hard. I'm going to try that after this interview.
So I want to talk about, since we're talking about, you know, kind of bridging the gap between what people are used to hearing and what could be, I want to talk about Left to Right, because it kind of does that. And I want to talk about the fact that you use kind of a sample, the vocal sample that everybody kind of knows. And I didn't even realize that was the sample until somebody brought it to my attention. Can you talk about like the process of making that song, and like also the process of getting it cleared to be released? Because I imagine that was probably a real difficult process.
Yep. So basically, I was streaming on Twitch, which I do very sporadically, and we were just chatting about Surprise House, is what I want to call it. Like, I noticed there was a trend in like some of the shows that I've been to where these DJs will play these songs with like the craziest build-ups ever. Like, it just goes for way too long. And
Right.
you kind of just like get a bit lost in the sauce, because you're like, what's going on? Like, people like put their hands up and then they just like put them down. They're like, this is taking too long. And then the drop like finally happens, and you're like, holy crap! Like, this is wild. And I was like, all right, let's just try and do it. And I have a bunch of like acapellas on my computer, and I think one of the first ones I dragged in was Soldier Boy, and like at the very start, he just says 3 times from left to right, and I was like, cool, let's try that. And then we just looped it forever, and like we were just kind of taking the piss, I guess, and it worked out. In terms of clearing it, though, it actually wasn't too difficult. I don't know exactly how this all works, but there's a difference between using the original like audio file in a track versus like a reproduced version of it, because it has something to do with like the people who are writing the track and the person who's performing it, so to speak.
It goes from, if you re-sing it or if you reinterpret it, it goes from having to clear it through the label to having to clear it through the publishing, and publishing is a lot easier to clear than having to clear it through the label. It's far easier to pay people that way.
Yeah. So basically, like, we went back and they were like, look, if you want to have Soldier Boy actually on the track, they like put down this figure, and I was like, I can't, like, this is just too much for a club track. So we got a company to like kind of redo it. It's a bit different. It doesn't have exactly the same source that I liked about it, but yeah, put the new vocals in, all the publishing, everything got cleared, like lickety split, which is cool.
Oh, that's so fantastic! I love to hear that. So,
Yeah.
be honest. Do you still play the original version with his voice on it, or do you play the new version?
I kind of I've jumped between the two sometimes. I like the old bootleg version for sure. It just has a different flavor, and also because like people, it doesn't exist on the internet anymore, the OG version, so it still feels like a little bit more of a like a little gem to play the old version with the old vocals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's mixed way worse than the new version, but yeah.
Well, having said that, what is, that was like a big tune for you. So what's next?
Man, I've been having a really good run with writing lately, so and next month, is it? We're in June. Yeah, in about a month's time, I got an EP coming out. So I just released Ecstasy, which was like kind of like a weird club banger thing, and basically following on from that, I've got 3 other just club tunes, like ranging from like 132 to 140 BPM.
Whoa.
I have been getting around the fast stuff a lot lately, only because like a lot of Americans don't know this, but the meta in Australia right now is just like fast music. Like, particularly in Melbourne and places like that, like you'll rock up and the opener will be playing like 138, 140 BPM TikTok remixes. Like techno and like techno adjacent stuff is just super popular right now. Like it's changed so much. Even in Sydney, right? Like, so Sydney kind of died off a bit during COVID and like with their lockout laws and stuff. And one of the most popular events is Ivy Sundays, and it's like Ivy Sundays is generally like more underground kind of cuts, but a lot of it's just really fast. So, I kind of wanted to get in on the action a little bit and experiment with a bit more kind of speedy stuff. I mean, there are a lot of artists in the States now who are kind of like they're bridging that like middle gap. It's not like, what's it called? It's not like speed house, so to speak. It's kind of got a little bit more like underground garagey kind of flavor, I suppose. Like, it's a bit less clean, the kind of style that we're seeing a lot here. But anyway, it's been fun to just do something a little bit less tech housey on this EP, so that should be fun. And then I've got a bunch of tunes with Omnom coming out later this year.
He's so dope.
Yeah, so we the last like 6-week tour I did in the States, I stayed at Cody Omnom's house on an air mattress, and pretty much every other day when we neither of us were playing shows, we would just go to his studio and just like channel our inner anti up, basically. Just like
Some weird,
makes
weird achy stuff.
weird analog, like filthy stuff. Yeah, one of the IDs has been doing the rounds lately, actually. So trying to move that forward to a reasonable release timeline. Don't want to sit on that one for too long, but we'll see. But in terms of things coming out, this is the first time in my whole life where my release schedule is actually like full to the end of the year. Like, people have remix requests and things like that, and I'm like, well, I don't know when we're gonna fit it in. So, yeah, it's exciting.
Must feel pretty cool. You've been doing this for a while now, and like you're at a point where you've produced enough music to take you into a whole nother year, and now you can
Yeah.
kind of pick and choose what you want to do.
Pretty much. Like, man, I wrote a whole album just before COVID and like never released it. So like that's a whole other bunch of stuff that, like, I know there might be like one or two people who watch this who were probably fiending for a couple of the IDs from that. So yeah, hopefully trying to do another EP later in the year with a few of the tracks from there and maybe some like newer melodic stuff. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm trying to do absolutely anything I want, and hopefully the people get around it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they will.
Well, I want to say, like, it's funny you mentioned that because I find myself getting to this conversation with a lot of artists. This whole idea that post-COVID, dance floors are far more ready to be open to letting an artist step outside the box and kind of do whatever. Like, people aren't super fixed on this idea that you have to, if you're a house artist, you have to play a house set all the time, or you're a techno artist, you have to do that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're in a freer space now to do whatever the fuck you want?
In the States, definitely. Like, all the shows that have been playing there recently, like, people haven't really switched off at any point. Like, if anything, you play a whole set full of techie stuff and then start playing a bit of drum and bass and everyone just goes bananas. So it's like,
It's true.
I wish I knew why, like what the particular catalyst is. Like, I'm going to say maybe a lot of the boiler rooms, like maybe people started exploring more of that kind of culture, or maybe it's just because TikTok is like full of just an eclectic mix of just random stuff. Like, 1 second there'll be something like pretty slow and vibey, like a chill like that or something like that, and then the next thing that's popping off is like just like a dancing sped up version. Like, I don't know what it is, but or maybe it's just because people are like a little bit more hyperactive these days and they actually like the idea of things changing. Anyway, I like it.
Either way, I'm all for it. Like, I
Yeah.
love that shit. I mean, I love going out to a night and seeing people do all of the things in an hour or two. And it's also nice hearing people not just do commercial tech house, throw a little drum and bass in there, or apparently 140 techno at 9 p.m. I'm down for that too.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe people are just getting like teched out because like usually like genres seem to like come and go in waves, and I feel like this particular like moment in the like tech house genre has been here for quite a while, like because it kind of started pre-COVID, so that that extended. I feel like that maybe extended that period out longer than it would have naturally if dance floors were still open. So maybe that's why everything's changing so quick, because like people who are freshly 18, like we can go out to venues when we're 18 here. I think it's 21 in the States, but
Yeah, most of them.
I talked to a lot of them, and like they're not, like, apart from Fisher, they're not really like cranking anything like that. They're cranking like, hectic techno, like speedy, like even there's this one artist, and they're basically just making like old prog house. Like, it's all just like saw plucks with like little init preset leads, like something you would have heard in like the early 2000s, like and people are like, wow, this sounds so fresh, like so sick. I'm like, wait, what? Like, you don't know. You don't know that is like the first beat that you make when you learn how to use like Massive or something. Like they don't know. They just think it sounds cool.
The initial sound on top of a beat.
Yeah. So like I don't know. We're in a really interesting time, and I think it's going to be just like adapt or die. Just everyone needs to. All the artists out there just need to be like super open-minded, and just let their creative juices flow. Let your inner weirdo shine, because like now's the time to just do something different, I reckon.
Yes, well said. Let your inner weirdos shine.
Yeah,
Having said that, I always like to close things of this part of the interview on what excites you about the future of dance music.
oh, and what excites me about the future? Um, it's like excites me and also terrifies me, but like all this kind of AI stuff that's coming out. Some of these plugins I recently downloaded. This is a free plugin, by the way, guys, from Google.
Yes.
Like Google made a VST.
What?
Yeah, it's called Timber Transfer, and basically, like you can. It's got some presets, but basically you can take a sound and make it sound like another instrument. I think some of the presets are like flute and trumpet, stuff like that, voices. But you can train your own model on it. I haven't gotten around to doing it, and I really want to at some point. But stuff like that, all this kind of AI stuff, it's going to be really interesting. And I feel like if anything, it pushes the thought more so that you need to like access what's unique to you. Because
Yeah.
like the further you go down the cookie cutter realm, AI is probably going to get closer to what you're doing than
This is true.
than you'd like. So yeah, just yeah,
did-
I'm super excited. Like even VR, like I saw that new Apple headset and immediately I'm like, what's the future gonna look like for working in the studio without a mouse, or like what's
Oh my god, that would be fantastic.
like imagine I'm just like actually just standing in the middle of my lounge room in the future, and all I'm using is like hand gestures to like navigate my door, which like wraps around my head, or there's like a floating set of drums. I don't need to buy a MIDI drum kit or anything, and it's just going to be like laser accurate somehow. Like that sounds kind of cool to me.
Sounds
So
pretty fucking cool.
yeah, I mean, it could be dystopian, it could be bad, but it could also be really, really awesome. So I'm gonna try and sit on the side of cautious optimism.
Yeah.
And we know, if anything, if it all sounds really bad, people always seem to go back to their roots of like underground, like off the grid events, things like that. So I feel like COVID's really shown us that the future will always have a space for music. It'll just like it always adapts in different ways, and yeah, just man, some of these like young producers are absolutely cracked off their heads. Like there's that little young dude who makes like K-Tronada beats or something that
Oh.
I've seen. He's like 11. I'm like,
The
what
little
is-
kid on TikTok, right? That's
Yeah.
like talking to himself while he's making the beat. That kid it's insane.
yeah, he's like, that's how you get the K-Tronada sound. I'm like, damn, bro, like I just learned something from you today. Like,
I know, right? He's like, "Oh man, I need some arps right now. That snare doesn't sound snappy enough." I'm like, "You're 11."
yeah, that's awesome. Like, I just know we're going to get some serious musical prodigies in the next, like, production prodigies, which I feel like maybe we couldn't have had before because, like, being a producer wasn't so easily accessible and mainstream. Like, when I was 6 to 10 years old, I'm sure, like, being a producer would have been a lot harder than it is. Like, getting started would have been a lot harder than it is now.
Well, just the barrier to entry back then. I mean, even when I was like that young, to buy equipment was hundreds or thousands of dollars, and now all you need is you don't even need a good laptop.
That's right. The iPad kids can start producing.
Yeah,
They can
With-
they can jump from watching Teletubbies or something to Logic. Like, just get in the stew.
and they're better at it than we were.
That's right. That's right.
Every
I'm
time.
excited. Anyway, it's
Love that.
yeah.
All right, so we're gonna do getting to the speed round now. Are you ready?
All right. Hopefully the my crappy Aussie internet doesn't make it look like I'm too much of a boomer here. So let's
And
see.
even if it does, it's part of the fun.
Okay.
All right. Favorite old school video game?
Old school video game, Crash Bandicoot.
Oh, well done. Would you rather swim in a pool full of Nutella or a pool full of maple syrup?
Nutella.
What was your first thought this morning?
Interview.
Vegemite, yes or no?
Yes.
Would you rather never hear your favorite song again or be forced to play your least favorite song in every set forever?
Get rid of the favorite.
All right. Would you rather only be able to whisper, only be able to shout?
Shout.
Favorite food to eat on tour?
Ramen.
Oh, nice. Biggie or Tupac?
Biggie.
If I looked at your recently played tunes on Spotify, what would you want to hide?
Oh. Boogie Wonderland.
Ooh,
Why would I want to hide that?
I don't know. This is a good question.
I don't know.
After you say it, you're like, you know what? Fuck that. I don't really want to hide anything.
That's right.
If I listen to shitty music, that's fine. Would you rather be forced to sing along or dance to every single song you hear for the rest of your life?
Oh, dance. Definitely dance.
Nice. What sound or noise do you love? Nice. That's
Just a
good
straight saw.
sound. Yes. Would you rather only be able to talk like Yoda or breathe like Darth Vader?
Breathe like Darth Vader.
If you could pick any era of history to live in, when would you pick?
Oh, the early, the like 80s.
Yes, good time.
Yeah.
What's worse, random people you haven't spoken to in years hitting you up for guest list or a hangnail?
The guest list.
And finish this sentence. House music is...
Awesome.
Yeah, it is. Damn right it is. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to me. Really appreciate it. And definitely looking forward to the new music. And next time you're in San Francisco, hit me up.
Thanks for having me, bro. And yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Well, thank you again, man.
All right, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. It's a good interview.
I appreciate that. Thank you.